Hello and welcome to Spiritual Life Yoga. I'm Rachel, I'm the yoga instructor, and this is a short video just to share some tips about beginning a yoga practice for people who might be starting out with yoga for the first time this year, wanting to try it out, or people who have been doing yoga for a while and want to just get back to basics in terms of thinking about the yoga practice and how we approach it. So the biggest concern that I typically hear from people who aren't sure about yoga or have tried it and want to get into it but aren't sure if it's for them, the biggest thing I hear is that people say they tried yoga once or twice but they're not good at it, which is always really surprising for me to hear because the way that I think about yoga, it's not really possible to be not good at it. And that maybe sounds a little corny, but it's true. And this is the reason. So the way that I suggest approaching yoga is different than how we typically approach other physical activities we might be familiar with, right? So a lot of times different types of physical activities are aimed either at competition or performance or both. So the goal is to be the strongest, the most flexible, or to look really good in what you're doing for an audience or for a judge. And neither of those things are the goal in yoga. So it's equally challenging, but it's challenging in a different way than those other types of activities. I recommend with yoga that you focus on finding your own edge in the poses that you're doing, and then being mindful in a way that's not judgmental or not ego-based, just being mindful of the sensations in your body, what you're experiencing, noticing when you're challenging your body just enough, noticing when you might be challenging your body too much and you need to pull back, and getting in tune with that and being able to honor your body and to not have judgments about that, to be able to be mindful with what you're doing, to use the breath, to stay rooted and to breathe through the challenge of your experience. All of those things are really the goal. And those are skills that build over time with yoga and translate into the rest of your life. So I'll say a little more about what I mean about finding your edge in poses. And this is a really common expression you'll hear yoga teachers use a lot. So basically, and it's relatively self-explanatory, right? But basically it means going to the point where you feel just enough challenge in terms of flexibility or strength or balance that you feel like you're challenging yourself, but you don't feel like the challenge is so overwhelming that it becomes painful or too much. And again, like I said, that is a skill that you build over time, being able to kind of easily tune into the body and notice what you're experiencing, the sensations that you're experiencing, and if it's a good challenge or a too much challenge where you're pushing yourself too far. And I will say for some people, you might find in a yoga class that most of the poses that are being offered, even with adjustments, just feel beyond your own edge, not really accessible to you. If that's the case, I'll post a video later this quarter. Well, regardless, I'll be posting a video later this quarter, but if that's the case, you might be interested in watching that one, with some tips about what I recommend for people in terms of just starting to open up the body and open up to different movements in certain ways so that yoga postures become more accessible. And these will just be simple things that you can do in terms of adjusting your position in different ways when you're sitting throughout the day. Very simple things to start to kind of make some of those postures more accessible to your body, to have your body used to different types of movements. So another thing I want to say about that, I'll just give an example of what I'm talking about with finding your own edge in the yoga pose and just noticing where where you are with your body and to what extent you want to, kind of push the pose. So one example might be a side stretch where you have one hand down, you're sitting with the legs crossed, and you have your arm up here. So a cue that I normally give here is to open the chest toward the ceiling, which is sort of this type of rotation. And the expectation that I'm having is not that everyone in the class will look like this. So you might look a lot more like this, but you're thinking, okay, opening toward the ceiling, maybe you open just a tiny bit, or maybe it's not even visible, but you're thinking about opening toward the ceiling and you're kind of having a micro movement happening there. And that's totally fine, right? Just noticing how far you can go with that cue, finding your own edge and finding the breath there, and not having a sense of ego or judging yourself, just noticing where you are and breathing into it. So I will say, for me, that aspect of yoga has always been kind of the most challenging. And I think I had a moment maybe a year and a half ago where I finally felt like I'm good at yoga. And I've been doing yoga, I think at this point 17 years, so way into practicing yoga. And I was taking a yoga class, and I noticed that the instructor would offer different levels of challenge and different poses, and I noticed that I was just recognizing what felt right for my body, taking the easier version of poses, and not caring about sort of proving to the other people in the class that I could do the most challenging one, and just kind of noticing what was right for me and going with that. And that was a moment for me where I felt like I finally got it, I'm finally good at yoga. And the challenge is going to be different for different people. So if you are someone prone to perfectionism, you might have a similar challenge to me. But that's all to say that really the focus in yoga, like I said from the beginning, is noticing where you are and not feeling like you need to be in a place of competition or judging yourself, or focusing on having things look really amazing. And that primary goal of just being more in tune and more in touch with your body really is, like I said, a skill that builds over time, and also something that translates into the rest of your life that you'll start to notice and has a lot of positive benefits in the rest of your life. So that's my number one tip. If you are thinking of starting up yoga this year for the first time, or if you've tried it once or twice and you're not sure, keeping that sort of goal in mind is my top tip for people who are new to yoga. And let's see, one last thing on that is also don't be afraid to ask your yoga instructor if there's poses that aren't working for you, or you're having trouble with, or are feeling uncomfortable to you. You might be able to ask during the class, or if not, you can ask after the class, and your yoga instructor will be able to help you, make little adjustments in the pose so that it works better for you. So don't be afraid to do that. Okay, I'd like to close out the video by just taking a breath. If you're watching and want to join me, sitting any way that feels comfortable, just taking a moment to breathe in as you inhale. Breathing as deeply as you can, drawing the breath in until the lungs feel completely full. So breathing in and in and in until you feel like you actually can't breathe in anymore. And then pausing and releasing the breath out slowly. Again, inhaling, filling the lungs to their full capacity. And exhale, release. And once more, inhaling fully. And releasing out. On an inhale, lift your arms up overhead, letting the hands come to touch. Exhale, releasing hands down in front of the heart. taking another breath here. And then let the hands drop down. Thanks for watching today, and if you want to participate in Spiritual Life's yoga offerings, we have all of the information, the schedule, the links at spirit.uchicago.edu/events. And Happy New Year, wishing everyone a great start to the winter quarter.